Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's Tea Talk with Morgan Oligus. Yay!
Yay!
I am so excited and I feel so honored that you said yes to do this with me.
Pish posh, I feel honored.
It's very exciting. And you and Paul are people, you're someone, but both of you, that I've been watching now for like a few years. I think just like from the sidelines, just keeping an eye out.
That is so crazy.
Isn't it weird? You never know. That's the weirdest thing about the internet is you never actually know who's watching you. Like, yeah.
And like half the time they don't comment,
Yeah.
so then you're like, yeah, you
Yes,
just never know.
exactly. Yeah, and I don't think I had ever said anything to you prior to this last year, but I was watching, and I think there's a lot of people that I watch that I just never end up getting into a conversation with. But that being said, Morgan and I have connected a lot in this last year, and part of that kind of came down to everything that unfolded with me this last year, with the cancellation and everything that went down. And you were one of the people that just reached out and was so kind and supportive to me. And so I've said this to you privately, but I just wanted to say again at the top of the video that it really meant a lot. I know you've been through this in your own way, this cycle of the internet basically bullying you and people kind of like jumping ship and not being supportive, or companies jumping ship and not being supportive. And it's really painful and it's really jarring, especially when you go through it for your first time. And so I just got chills thinking back on the last year. I just wanted to say that at the start to your face, since all we've done is like voice messaging, that it really meant a lot to me. So thank you, Ms. Morgan. So Morgan is part of a channel with her husband called Paul and Morgan. And I always think of Paul and Morgan, the Paul and Morgan show, even though I know that's old news now. That's still what I think of.
No one will let that go. Like everyone still wants us to this day to bring it back. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. You never know like what's really going to stick with people. And then that does. And you're like, seriously?
It's so true. I have this weird thing that stuck with people that was never my intro song. So I can understand more why that would stick. But I had this joke I made with someone like 5 years ago, 6 years ago in a Vlogmas. And it was like an embarrassing thing. Like I just slipped on my language. I was like, we're hanging out and hanging out. And people for like years would be like, you need to make a shirt that says we're hanging out and hanging out. I was like, I sounded so dumb. This is so weird. So you really never know what like clicks with people. But that being said, her and her husband Paul have a channel and it's morphed over the years. And now it's at the point where it's pretty much like commentary on culture, pop culture, even Christian culture. And it's all through the lens of like a Christian perspective. And I really appreciate where your channel has gone. I think you guys are very brave, very gutsy, and I appreciate you. Or you
I said it's scary, that's for sure.
Well, that's something we're going to have to talk about too, because I think it's been really interesting, like dipping my toes even more into the world of like, okay, you know what? Like I've already been drugged through I don't even know what the phrase would be, drugged through the coals. And so I'm deciding to move forward with more honesty, little bits at a time. And there is kind of this thought of like, is everyone as nervous as I am? And like, does it ever go away?
I don't know if it does. I'll let you know.
Yeah, keep me posted, Morgan. So part of the reason that I brought Morgan on here today, like I said, I love their content. I love what they're doing, what they're sharing. But Morgan is pregnant. And how far along are you now? Do you want to show the belly or is that weird?
Let me try. These days it's hard to move around.
Yeah, if that's weird, you got oh my gosh. Oh, little Luca. So sweet. And when is your due date?
So I am 29 weeks and 3 days. My due date is September 13th, but I keep saying like, I feel like he's going to come the last few days of August, very beginning of September. I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm probably very wrong. I said that I was 99.9% sure it was a girl, and he's definitely a boy. So like, no one hold me accountable to this.
I'm really interested to see when you actually do deliver, because I love finding out like what mother's instinct is versus what actually happens, even in regards to gender. That's so funny because I never thought I was having a boy, but I have a friend whose mom, she's a family of 11, like 11 siblings, and her mom guessed right on every single gender. She was like, yeah, mother's intuition. I was like, I had no intuition about gender.
No.
But I did have an intuition about due date, and I didn't really realize it. Meaning, like, at the end, I was like, Dan, how am I going to go to 40 weeks? Like, I can't, I'm done. And little did I know it was because I was actually done. I ended up delivering Logan a little over 2 weeks, quote unquote, early. So I'm interested to see what happens.
That's very cool. Okay, yes.
Yes.
That gives me hope that I could be right.
You could be right, because I didn't know that I knew it, but I knew it. I was like, I can't do this. Like, how is this going to keep going?
Right.
So,
oh my goodness.
I'm interested to see. So that being said, I want to talk about a few different things in this conversation, but kind of the thing that really popped to the surface of my mind when you popped to my head, because kind of the way that I'm doing these interviews, it's a little bit woo woo wee wah. I was just telling this to Dan last night.
Woo wee wah.
Exactly.
Great.
It's like it's all it's going to be an ongoing conversation with different people, and I'm kind of just going in the direction that I feel like God wants the conversations to go next. And so you just popped in my head next. And one of the top things that came to mind, which if people follow you, they know this, but if you guys don't, you don't. And hopefully this conversation will bring to light maybe even things you don't know. But Morgan and Paul have been married for 5 years now.
It'll be 6 years in 2 weeks.
Okay, 6 years and 2 weeks. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And they had, I don't know how to even properly word it. Like, I don't want to call it infertility, but they had a journey to conceive over 4.5 years, right?
Yes, almost 5. Yeah.
Almost 5 years. So you were together or you were married for a year before you guys started trying. And, I miscarried a few months ago. And miscarriage is not, I've said this a few times, it's not something that, as far as I know, like my mom never miscarried, neither of my grandmothers ever miscarried. And so it's not something that's super common in our family. But now I'm kind of, coming to face with my own kind of mental, like, all right, we're gonna do this again. And my own journey of like having hope and trusting God's timing. And I would imagine, and I just got chills thinking about this, I would imagine that 4.5 years, whoa, I just got chills again and almost got teary-eyed thinking about it. I would imagine that was a really difficult journey. And so I kind of just want to hear about that. I don't know if you want to start at the beginning, what your thoughts were around having kids in the beginning, what that looked like, wherever you want to start.
Yeah. So I grew up, and feel free to interject or anything if you feel like I'm talking way too long.
But I will. I'm good at interjecting.
I grew up knowing literally from the age of like 2 that I wanted to be a mommy and a wife. Like my mom, every time she would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say, you. And she'd say, what do you mean? A mommy and a wife.
Oh, gosh, that's so sweet. I don't know why I keep getting chills, but that's so sweet. It's true. I'm a little dramatic, but I'm telling the truth. Keep going.
Oh my goodness. So when just like growing up, I had this thought in my mind, like as soon as you have sex, you will get pregnant. Like that was what I was kind of told and led to believe. And so when Paul and I got married, about 6 months into our marriage, I felt convicted to get off of birth control of any kind. I was not on the pill at that time. I had been when we first got married, got off pretty fast because it just jacked me up. And so, yeah.
Common story.
What?
Common story. Birth control jacking people up.
Yes, exactly. And so I got off of that pretty quick, but we were still using other contraceptives. And I told him, I was like, I just feel like the Lord is saying, like, Morgan, trust me in this part of your life. Like, just give
Mm.
this to me. And so Paul was like, ah.
Yeah.
And about a week later, after he prayed on it, he was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I feel the same way. Let's do this. And so we just started doing the deed.
And you weren't necessarily trying at that point, right? You were just like, let's
Right.
just see what happens.
Yep. Yeah. So for the first year, really, we weren't trying. We were just like, let's just see what happens. God told me to trust him in this, so we will.
Mm.
And a year in, like, I was not at a place where I was like concerned or like, whoa, like I was kind of surprised, like, whoa, I can't believe I'm not pregnant. I thought that when you had unprotected sex, like you would get pregnant no matter what.
Uh-huh.
And so I was super confused by that, but also was still in a place mentally. I had struggled with depression and anxiety a lot. And was on like antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication.
Mm.
And so I was at a place where I was like not sad that I wasn't pregnant yet.
Mm.
So you'll have to
Do you
forgive me.
feel- No, no, that's fine. Sorry.
It's
What were you gonna say?
you have to forgive me because talking, I'm like,
Yes, it's crazy. I remember, but the weirder part is I remember losing my breath like early on. And then as you get bigger, it just gets worse.
Yep. Yep.
I was going to ask you, maybe that's exactly what you're insinuating, but do you feel like the antidepressants and the anti-anxiety medication kind of numbed your feeling of like concern, or do you feel like it was just because it was still early enough, or maybe both?
Yeah, I feel like probably both. I personally, because I was struggling so much mentally, like I was consistently going into like downward spirals mentally, struggling with suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
I was just like, I am not ready to have a baby. So like, thank you, Jesus, for not letting me get pregnant.
Yeah.
But also I think that, yeah, like the lack of concern that I had was probably numbed down by the medication that I was on.
Mm.
Um, and so I finally got to a place where I was doing a lot better mentally, and was actually eventually going to start weaning off of my antidepressants and whatnot and all the medication that I was on.
Mm.
But before that, even I went to my OBGYN after about a year and a half of having unprotected sex and not being pregnant, because I was just kind of like, maybe I should just like get my body looked at. Like, what if I have cancer? What if I'm dying and I don't know it? Like, why
The
am I not
brain.
getting pregnant? This seems crazy to me.
Mm.
So I went and she was like, oh yeah, like you're struggling with infertility. You know, if anyone who struggles for more than a year to get pregnant, like we immediately kind of just call that infertility.
Mm.
And I was like, so does that mean I can never have kids? And she was like, no, we just got to figure out what's going on. And so I was like, okay. I had never, like, I don't even know if I knew, truly understood what infertility was, or like that women genuinely struggle with it. I don't know. I was just very naive to all of that.
Mm.
And so she told me, she was like, you know, not a lot of people know this, but antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, they obviously are messing with your hormones, and that can cause you to not get pregnant because some of your hormones are lower or
What?
gone.
Wait, pause. I had no idea. And
Really?
no, so I recently made a video on my Patreon talking about my experience with SSRIs. I was on Lexapro for a couple of years, and then Xanax, and I was talking about, it was a whole separate story. I never touched on that because I did not know that. I've never heard that. That's really, sorry, I had to pause there because I'm like, what? That totally makes sense. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
everything we put in our body affects our body, but I had no idea. Okay, so she says that to you. She goes, yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but that.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. So like in a sense, I'm kind of on birth control. Not exactly, like you can still very much get pregnant while on antidepressants, but she made it pretty clear to me of like, this is like why you're not pregnant, is because of your antidepressants. Your hormones are so low. Apparently I wasn't ovulating and like hadn't been ovulating for years because of my antidepressants and like had no idea. Like I still had regular periods. Everything seemed normal except for that. So yeah,
Isn't
that
that
was
amazing that you can have a period without ovulating, on a side note?
I had
Yeah.
no idea that that was a thing.
Well, and I guess it makes sense too, thinking about like birth control, you will still have a bleed, but they say it's not even it's not a period, which I still don't understand. I'm like, so wait, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Super interesting.
I
Okay,
know.
you had not been ovulating for years. And what does that do to the body? But anyways, that's fascinating.
Seriously. So I told her, she basically wanted to start me on Clomid. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's like, yeah, it forces your body to ovulate. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be working on getting off of my antidepressants here soon. So let's just wait until I'm off of all of that stuff to like put me on anything else. And so it took like about another year for me to wean off of my antidepressants with my psychiatrist, the help of her approval and whatnot.
Which, bro, that is no joke. Getting off of psychotropics, if that's the word, is like way bigger of a deal than I feel like doctors make it seem, like than they convey when you get on it.
Yeah, it was intense. Like I literally felt like I was like, well, I know what it's like to withdraw off of meth or cocaine.
I just got chills again. Did you ever deal with like the brain zaps?
Brain zaps.
Like where you would feel like you're going like that. I don't know. I was asked because apparently according to Google, that's a common thing. And I had it all the time where it was like the feeling of dropping in a roller coaster, but rather than in your chest, in your brain.
Yes.
Crazy.
That was wild. And I felt like super just like out of it. Just like I would look, if I like looked too fast somewhere, my like it felt like my brain like oh wild.
Wild. Sorry, I had to just pause on that because I don't have a ton of conversations with other people that have been on them and then weaned and made the comment of like how horrible it was. It's really very serious.
Oh, it's super serious. And like I'm super thankful that I had my psychiatrist to walk through that whole process with me. And Paul obviously walked through that with me. And like, yeah, I would not recommend people just like not taking them anymore because woo.
No. And I actually had a doctor basically tell me that. On a side note, I was on such a low dose. I had two doctors tell me you could just basically stop cold turkey at any point and it'll be fine. So I had the opposite of experience of you. I had to basically self wean for about 6 months, and it took me two separate times. I tried the first time and I was like, I literally can't do this. I'm going back on. Went on my medication, and then a year later, just Dan and I on our own. He like took my pills into the kitchen and cut them into fourths. And I was taking like 75% for like a month or so, and then 50%. And that's how I got off. But I still had symptoms, and I was on the lowest dose that they even prescribe of Lexapro. Wild.
Wow.
So it took you a full year with your psychiatrist.
Yes. So got off of that stuff and then started doing other things to just like supposedly help with my hormones. I started working with like a naturopath doctor, which I'm not against naturopath doctors at all. I'm not against, like, I'm very much for let's find the natural things to do to help before going to like heavier medication, because I have so much experience with heavier medication and how it jacks you up.
Yeah.
So I worked with this naturopath doctor for about a year, and basically when I first sat down with her, she told me like, you'll be pregnant in 3 months, no doubt. And I was like,
Oh,
okay, this is amazing. 3 months come, not pregnant. I asked her, why am I not pregnant? Like, what's wrong with me? And she's like, well, it's been a little bit harder to get your hormones like back to where they need to be because of like how long your body was just kind of messed up with your hormones and whatnot because of the medications you were on. So let's just keep going. Let's keep trying certain things, like very natural things. But she did end up putting me on some medication. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a lighter natural like progesterone.
okay.
And that like supposedly did nothing but bad things for me. And so after almost a year of working with her, I pieced out and was like, I'm so just like hurt, one, by her telling me that I was going to be pregnant in 3 months. Like, don't do that, people. Just don't do that. And two, I was just so frustrated of like, I've been doing all like everything that I could possibly do and nothing, at least everything that this doctor was telling me to do. So
Yes.
I stepped away from that, and like 2 or so months later, my mom's friend suggested that I go to this fertility doctor that she saw and has helped her get pregnant with like all 3 of her kids. So I was like, okay, I'll go, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And so I went and spoke with her, and she was just very calming and nice and like really listened to me, which I thought was a huge deal, and it is a huge deal.
No problem.
And she was like, let's do blood drawing, and I want to look at like everything that's going on in your body. And so she did, and just like I'd been told twice before, your hormones are out of whack. She's like, you're not ovulating, your hormones are wacky. We need to get your hormones back to where they need to be so that you will hopefully just start naturally ovulating.
And I would imagine that after a year of working with this other doctor, that was pretty discouraging to hear now another doctor say, oh, everything's out of whack. And you're like, so nothing changed? Like a year of my work changed nothing?
Oh, what was even worse to hear was she was like, I don't want to like bash any doctor or anyone, but what you've been doing for the past year, you've basically like put yourself on a natural birth control.
I remember
so
you saying that. I cannot handle it.
she was like, you basically just like made your body definitely not be able to get pregnant. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I just like went and cried for like 3 days.
And at that point, you're like, wait, so I've invested the time, I've invested the money, I've invested the effort. And it's that, yeah, that's a big, that could have been a really big discouraging mountain. I don't even know what the word would be, but like issue.
It was so frustrating. I wanted to call the other doctor up and be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I bet. Oh, that's hard.
But she was like, but don't lose hope. Like, we'll get your hormones where they actually need to be. And then if we need to try some medication to like help with your body, just teaching it what it needs to do because it hasn't done that for so long, then that's what we'll do. And so I basically worked with her for about 6 months, 3 months of just like kind of getting my body where it should be, tracking my cycle, seeing if I was ovulating, seeing if eggs dropped, things like that. And then after those 3 months, we did 2 rounds of like I think what I took, it was kind of similar to Clomid, but like I can't remember what it was called. But it basically just like told my body it's time for you to ovulate. And so
I have a question.
yes.
So you weren't ovulating, which means you weren't dropping the eggs. So this is a really specific, weird question, but was your body just holding on to the eggs? Like, we're just going to keep them in storage.
I guess maybe.
I mean, supposedly a baby girl is born with all of the eggs that she'll have in her whole lifetime. Like, you don't make any more. So it's like your body was just holding on to them. That's so bizarre.
I know.
Body is so weird. Sorry, that was an uber specific question, but I didn't know if you knew.
Yeah, no, I'm assuming it's just holding on to them, weren't dropping any eggs. Like I'm in my past, like my doctor said, I don't think you've never not ovulated. I think that once you got on antidepressants when I was around 17 and a half years old, that your body started to slowly stop ovulating.
Interesting.
Yeah. So basically after one round of doing Clomid or whatever it was to tell my body it's time to ovulate, I did a trigger shot, which again, like I feel like I should know what all these things do or did to me, and I do know, but being in my 3rd trimester, I can't remember anything.
I know there's a lot happening in your body right now.
I
Yes, I do. I just remember so well being like, wow, being pregnant's like way harder than I thought it was going to be.
literally, oh my goodness, it is a marathon.
It literally is. Okay, so you did some kind of trigger shots, and what was it triggering? Just like the waterfall of hormones that would make you drop the egg?
Yes, I believe so. That is what it did. Was basically tell my body to release an egg.
Hmm.
And so it did, and nothing happened that first month of doing the trigger shot and other medication. And that was like painful for sure. I mean, like I remember after like my period started, sitting there the day after it started, sitting like out on my back porch, kind of just like crying to God and just being like, Lord, like, I can't believe that I am injecting myself with a needle with hormones that my body like has not been able to create, and like trying to have a baby this way. Like, this is just the craziest thing. Like, I never in my life thought that I would have to do something like this.
Not what you picture when you're a teenager and the only messages being pushed upon you are you need birth control. It's not at all what's told to us in culture, which is so fascinating on a side note, considering, like we just said, there are so many things that I think are coming at us that kind of not cause infertility, but make it harder to get pregnant nowadays. Like
Oh,
the medications, like the list goes on and on.
yeah,
Not what
absolutely.
you picture.
No, it's not what I pictured at all. And it was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this again. And so the next cycle came, we did it all over again, trigger shot, medication, timed sex. That was maybe like one of the hardest parts, because it like literally, it really does like, and we had been, having timed sex or whatever for the past like year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
And we had to be so intentional of not letting it zap the like romance out of it, because it's like, oh, I'm ovulating, or oh, I think it's that time of the month, let's go, buddy. Like,
It's hard.
yeah. And so it was very draining. And after that second month, my period came again, and I was just like, oh, Lord, why? And so the third month, we were going to do the same thing, trigger shot, medication, time sex, whatever, ultrasounds, blah, blah, blah. And but we were going on vacation to Florida, and I wasn't going to make it back in time to have a specific ultrasound to, basically just like show if I did drop an egg or not, because if I didn't drop an egg, you can't do the trigger shot. So I wasn't going to make it back in time. So my doctor was just like, well, let's just wait. You just have a month where you just relax, like just go on vacation. When you get back in January, we'll try again, do this. And then if this didn't work, this third round of trigger shots, we were going to kind of move to the next level. And I didn't feel like a conviction of no, like we shouldn't do this next level. I don't feel right about it. But there was just something in me that was just like, I really, really do not want to move to the next level of infertility treatments. And I remember just praying to God, like, Lord, please, like, please don't let me go through this. I don't want to do this. And I don't know. So we went on vacation, and it was like one of the best vacations of my life. It was so relaxing. I had been just like so stressed out for months and months and years, it felt like. And so just knowing that like there's nothing I can do, we're not taking medications, I'm not even going to like time sex or anything, like we're just gonna have a fun vacation and live life and love one another.
And have sex when the timing is right.
Exactly.
When the mood strikes us, which the mood is usually an indicator of something, but go on.
Yes.
Or can be.
Yes. And so we had great sex. We had a great time. We ate great food.
Those are all good things.
All good things. We celebrated my birthday down there, which was awesome.
Mhm.
And so it was just amazing. And we got back and Christmas came and New Year's Eve came and my period was supposed to start like any day after New Year's Eve and it didn't. And I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention to like my cycle. I wasn't really tracking it perfectly. So I was like, I'm probably a few days off. Like I'll start in a few days. Well, I was like technically 3 days late from when I thought I should start. So I took a test. Then it came back negative. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like I wasn't really disheartened because again, I wasn't trying that month and I was just had really like taken that weight off of me.
Yeah.
And so 3 days later, I was going to Tennessee with my mom and sister to drop her off in college at her college. And we were like stuck here in Lexington where I live for a few hours because my little sister's car was getting looked at. And so we were eating lunch and talking. And we were like about to go pick up her car. And I was like having shortness of breath, like big time. and like my breasts were really sore.
There's an indicator. Can I just pause you at this point and say, I thought this was where this was going. I remember that vacation, but I wasn't positive. And I don't know that I fully knew this, that this was the trip. But
Yeah.
go on.
So yeah, I was having these weird symptoms, but again, like it did not cross my head of like, oh, maybe I'm pregnant. Like I was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm sick, maybe I'm just having a weird day, allergies, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was like talking to my mom and was like super trying to catch my breath, and she's like, "Are you sick? What's wrong with you?" And I was
Allergies, I don't know.
yeah, I was like, no, I'm not sick. I was like, I don't know. I just like have been really short of breath. I was like, I mean, I'm 6 days late on my period. And she's like, you're 6 days late? Morgan, we need to go get you a pregnancy test. And I was like, I really don't think that I'm pregnant, Mom. I was like, I just think it's allergies or something. She's like, we're going. So we went to Walmart and got a test, and I was like, well, I guess I'll film this because I've been filming like every pregnancy test that I've taken. And so literally in the bathroom of Walmart, I pee on a stick and come out, and me and my sister and my mom are waiting for the results. And like usually it takes like 3 to 5 minutes for the results to come back. It came back within like 15 seconds, pregnant.
You were like way pregnant. You had days for those hormones to rise. Oh, I remember that so well when you shared that. Like the fact that it happened in a Walmart bathroom is hilarious.
Oh,
but
man.
also like, how crazy is that? I just got chills again.
Me too.
I've heard this from multiple women before where it's like the trying, and then you're just like, oh my gosh. And then it happens. Like, what is that about?
It's so like it's almost annoying to me because I constantly had people being like, you just need to relax.
No, I know.
Go on vacation. And I'm like,
know.
I've done that before. Like I've been doing that for 3, 4, 5 years. Like
Yeah.
I've gone on plenty of vacations and relaxed. Like that's not the issue here, people.
Yes. But something came together. It's just funny that was ended up being the timeline. Like you went on this awesome vacation and then that's what happened. But it is weird how that works sometimes. And the timing was perfect. And that's kind of a big part of like even talking to you, that like why I wanted to talk to you was this idea of like God's timing is perfect. And what a trip it is to think that Luca, that exact egg and that exact sperm, like he is a unique being that would have never even been had this happened at another point. Like it's so wild to me, just the creation of life. And that was one, like, he's so unique.
Uh, it's amazing. It seriously blows my mind every time I sit down and think about it. Like literally, I just sit down on the couch every morning and like poke my stomach to see Luca kick me and move around. And I'm just like, I'm living in a dream right now. Like this is insane.
It's so wild. And when you, as my son and I lovingly say, when you poop him out, like Logan and I'll be like, you pooped me out. I'm like, I did poop you out. When you poop out Luca, it's literally like, you know, there's a person inside of you the whole time, right? You feel them, you see the ultrasound. I don't know if you've had any ultrasounds. Okay, you see the ultrasound, you see it going, but there is still something, like, people make fun of me in my birth video for my freak out, but it was 100% genuine. It was, I could not believe it. It was like, wait, there was a real person in my belly. And it's wild.
Dude, your birth video is like gonna go down in history of one of the most hilarious birth videos of my life.
It is so embarrassing and also amazing. I'm like, whatever, I don't need to be embarrassed. That was genuinely the cinch, you know?
I love it. I love it.
Birth is crazy. Side note, that's not a side note. I am, of course, very excited that you're going for a home birth. Have you always been, I know this is kind of changing gears and I do want to circle back, but have you always been interested in home birth?
I no. When Paul and I first got married, I was like, give me all the drugs. I'm doing it in a hospital. Don't even try to talk me into doing it naturally. That's terrifying and disgusting.
You don't get a gold medal for doing it naturally. Side note, that's like my least favorite quote ever. I'm like, do you think that anybody that's doing it naturally is going for a gold medal? Like,
Right.
you are really misinterpreting my intentions. Like,
no, but then like 2 years into our marriage, I don't know what happened, but just something in me. I was just like, I don't know if I was like reading somewhere in the Bible or like what, but I was just like, you know what? Why the heck do I not want to have a natural birth? Like, I want to do this the way that like Mary did this with Jesus. Like, I want to relate to her on a whole new level, which granted, I won't be in a cave slash den with animals. So
isn't it wild to think like we're living at in such a specific time in history where it wasn't that long ago where everyone did it that way. Like, that's what's crazy to me, is we're still kind of at the beginning of like a new chapter in birthing history.
Right. Like I started after I kind of made that decision, I just started doing a ton of research and was just like blown away by just like how much I didn't know about having an epidural and things that it can maybe do to your baby and like all the medications that they put in you and the constant like interventions and whatnot. And just like, oh, it's just not supposed to be that way. And like the fact that natural birth doesn't have to be excruciatingly painful. Like, don't get me wrong, I still believe there's going to be discomfort and pain. But
it was hard. It was hard. But I mean, obviously, right, goes without saying, it was worth it. And my recovery was so good. Like, and I don't think what I experienced was uncommon. Like, that's what I kind of expected when I started doing research and listening to the Happy Home Birth podcast and all of that stuff. It was like, oh, so these are the expected results for a natural home birther. And I got exactly that. And of course, I've only done it once. There's always part of you that's like, was that just a coincidence? But it's wild that it played out exactly kind of how they said it would. Like, and you know, there's also the mental part of it, which I'm trying to not go off on a tangent here, but I know for me, that was part of the decision as well, was like having the mental piece of knowing I won't have to leave my home. I can have my own beverages, my essential oils, my snacks, my bed, you know what I mean? It was like, I don't want to leave that. How am I even going to feel comfortable enough to get this baby out of me? Like at the hospital, like just, so I'm very excited that that's the path you're going down. But so, okay, backing up, when you found out you were pregnant at Walmart, what was that like? Like, what was that experience? What went through your mind in the following days? Like, I don't know if you want to pick up from there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just shocking. Like, I mean, we were just like screaming in the bathroom of Walmart.
Were there other people there?
No one in the bathroom, but finally an employee came. Like, I think people were too scared to walk into the bathroom. They weren't sure what they were about to find, like a murder or something. Like,
Stay out.
so an employee finally, she came in and she was like, "Is everything okay?" And my mom was like, "She's pregnant."
That's so exciting.
Oh my goodness. So we left, we got in the car, and my mom was like, "What do you want to do? Like, do you want to tell Paul right now? Like, do you want to just go to Tennessee and tell him when you get back?" And I was like, "There is no way I can keep this a secret for the next 2 days. Like, no."
Yeah.
And so we just like turned around. We were like 5 minutes down the road from my house. And Paul was like gonna take a nap. And I texted him and I was like, "Hey, Mom and Maria want to say bye to you before they head out." And Paul was like, "You guys should really like be on the road by now." Like, it was snowing and there was like ice and it was super cold and gross. And he was like starting to get like worried that we were going to be driving super late at night. And he was like, "No, like just I can say hi to them some other time. You guys keep going." I was like, "Too bad, we're here." So we walk in and like my mom's like secretly recording.
I was just gonna say, I'm flashing back to visuals that you vlogged this. But keep going. Yes.
Yes. And so Paul is not good with surprises, like not good. And then on top of that, to like put people around during him finding something out that's a surprise, it's just like not amazing. And so he's like standing there again, thinking in his mind, like, "I want them to be on the road. It's going to be dangerous for them," like thinking about our safety and blah, blah, blah. And so I like pull out the pregnancy test and show him, and he like looks at it and he's like, "What?"
Oh.
He's like, "But you took one a few days ago and it said you weren't pregnant." And I was like, "I know."
Well, my hormones have risen.
Yeah. I was like, "I took it too early." And he was like, "What?"
Yes. Well, and dude, yeah, not only had you just taken the test, but it had been 4 years. And then he's just a surprise out of nowhere.
Literally. Yeah. So like, I mean, he already had it in his mind that like, okay, she's not pregnant this month. We'll try again next month. And then I was like, psych.
Dude, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, even if you haven't been trying for years, I don't know what can really prepare you for a positive pregnancy test. Like, it is a trip because you get it, and then all of a sudden it's like your whole life flashes before your eyes, and you're like, there's a whole separate person. What is gonna, like, it just everything flies in front of you. So I can't imagine after that long.
Yeah, it was wild. And so we then immediately like had to leave because Paul was like, "Okay, this is amazing. This is incredible. I'm going to process this. You guys need to get on the road."
Yeah. He's like, "I'm gonna take my nap and think about my future child."
So like throughout the whole weekend, he would text me and just be like, "Wow, whoa, I'm going to be a dad. Whoa, there's a baby in your belly."
Dude, it's such a trip. Oh, you're frozen. Oh, there you are again. You were totally frozen, looking happy, but you're back. Yeah, what a trip. So he's texting you all weekend. I can't believe you left town right away after finding out. That's also
It was so weird that I left. I was like, whatever, I guess this needs to happen. And it was probably good because it gave Paul like time to process and just like get more excited. And then when I got back, he was just like, "We're gonna be parents."
Yes. And it's such a trip to wrap your head around that. So you gotta take some naps and think.
Yes, exactly. Lots of naps and lots of thinking.
Wow. I mean, what a crazy ride. Okay, this is going to be kind of a weird transition, but I'm just going to blurt it out. Obviously, I'm ecstatic that you're pregnant and that this is where you've gotten to. There's going to be a lot of people watching though that are, in their own season of whether it's infertility or just waiting for something. And man, that can be hard, waiting for God's timing and trusting that his timing is better than ours can be really difficult. That being said, on a side note, that's not a side note. I think I told you, I talked to Dale Partridge yesterday and we were talking a little bit about suffering. And I was talking about this to Dan this morning again, just saying that like suffering and trials does something really special to you, if that's the word.
Yeah.
It's, I was reminiscing about my miscarriage with him when I was talking about it this morning, and just saying like, so after I miscarried, there were 3 nights in a row where I like couldn't sleep. It was totally hormonal. And I would just go outside in the middle of the night and just like stand. Like one of the nights there was a full moon, and I just stood under the full moon. It's not funny at all. It just sounds very dramatic. And I just
Yeah.
sobbed at like 3:30 in the morning, just like moon bathing. And the whole experience was just really, really sad. But without even being able to really find the right words, talking to Dale about this, like his track that was written nailed it perfectly, that suffering and waiting, it does something really unique to you. And processing it is hard. So that being said, I don't know, I mean, I'm assuming you are because we're in this interview, but if you're comfortable kind of putting yourself back and sharing with us how you got through those 4 years and what that journey looked like for you, just emotionally. And I know we touched on it a little bit already, so you might be like, what else do you want me to say? But there just is this feeling of like, yay, it's a happy ending. But I want to kind of circle back to that for the people that are in that season right now of waiting.
Yeah, no, I love getting to encourage people in the waiting. I loved getting to encourage people in the waiting while I was still in the waiting.
Mm.
Now, like being on the other side, so to speak, of having a little baby boy growing in me, like one of my passions is still like, how can I encourage people that aren't quite there yet in the receiving of what they've been praying for so long.
Yeah.
So I think like something that I kind of just decided, and it's interesting because my personality is like, when I decide something, like I just go full force ahead, and like there's no like looking back.
Yeah.
And about, well, so it's like, 4 years into me getting pregnant, but like 2 months into the actual like fertility treatments of the trigger shots and whatnot, I just like was sitting with God and just felt like him reveal to me that I felt like this saying came over or came into my mind of, when you're walking with God, pain is purposeful. And
Oh,
I just like held on to that of like looking back at other times in my life where I walked through really painful situations. And now like I'm so thankful for all of those painful situations, like every single one. I'm thankful for it because I see now like the Lord did something in that. I didn't see it then, and it's taken years for me to see it. And some of the pain that I've walked through, I still haven't seen like what the heck was the purpose of that.
yeah.
But I trust that like God did, and it's doing something in me to make me look more like Christ through that pain.
Yes.
And that's our whole goal as believers, is to look more like Christ on a daily basis. And man, how much pain did Jesus go through? Like, how much pain did he walk through in his 33 years of life? And so for us to think that like we can get through life without any pain is just like very naive of us. And so to accept the pain and to recognize that when you're walking with the Lord, your pain is purposeful and it is turned into beauty in one way or another one day.
Yeah. Yes.
That's like a really encouraging thing to live with. So
That
yeah.
sentence that you felt the Lord speak over you is so profound, and I believe to be true. I want to grab something. So I mentioned to you that I did that call with Dale yesterday, and I want to read this part because basically he's got these like gospel tracks that his organization has launched, and they're cool. I've only read all the way through one, and I thought it was really interesting because I had planned on reading a different one, but then because I had like put them around my house to read, I like lost them and I couldn't find it. So I was like, well, I guess I just read another one. So I read his one that's called A Message of Joy, and it's specifically it says a guide through trials, tragedy, and illness. And so the way that the gospel is presented in this kind of is through that lens. And there was one page in particular. I ended up getting asked in the chat. Let me just address this ahead of time. Someone asked if I was a Calvinist. I just want to throw out there, I'm not a Calvinist. People have definitely seen my faith transformation change. I think people notice things have changed in a vague way, but I don't even really know honestly what the change is, other than I've been exposed to a lot more over the last few years. My mind has opened to different theological leanings, but I don't even really know what I think about a lot of things. But I definitely am attracted to certain reformed people, reformed theology, but I can't say like I'm tuliped out. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
definitely not. So, but I just wanted to say that because I feel like this almost kind of infers that, but I
Yeah.
don't feel like, I don't know. You'll get what I mean. I want to read this though. It's
Yeah.
talking about Romans 8:28, you know, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. And then this is the blurb that really hit me. It says, Paul and James both say that we should rejoice in our trials because of their beneficial results. It is not the adversity considered in itself that is to be the ground for our joy. Rather, it is the expectation of the results, the development of our character that should cause us to rejoice in adversity. God does not ask us to rejoice because we have lost our job, or a loved one has been stricken with cancer, or a child has been born with an incurable birth defect. But he does tell us to rejoice because we believe that he is in control of those circumstances and is at work through them for our ultimate good. And that idea, especially the last line, that he is at work through them for our ultimate good, I'll just say it again, like the miscarriage, like just definitely changed me. I know I'm only a couple of months out, but there really is something to be said for pain and suffering, deepening your relationship with the Lord, and awakening your awareness to other people's pain as well. And I really do think, I mean, I know it sounds corny and simple, but it really does bring you, I think, more empathy and closer to other people for a lot of reasons, not only because you can support them, but I know for myself, walking through that, I was in a position where I was kind of not forced to let people in. I wasn't forced, but because we had chosen to share right away, it was like, well, now everybody knows I'm pregnant. Like, what am I just gonna never say anything again? So I kind of had to. But because of that, you know, people were able to step in to the pain. I wasn't so hidden. And so that's kind of something else. I am assuming, you know, just knowing you, like you had people in your life walking through that pain with you. And so I guess I just wanted to chime in as well to those of you that are in this season, to not keep it so close to yourself, to choose to let trusted people in, because it is crazy. Like, I don't think I'm a super cynical person, but I think there's maybe a strain of that there, in the sense that, like, I was legitimately surprised. I like legitimately surprised how many people were so supportive and kind and like showed Christ's love to me through their words and through their actions. And
Yeah.
so I just want to encourage people to let people in, because you might be really surprised at what other people can do for you. I mean, that's the body of Christ, is people, right? We're showing our love that way.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. We're not meant to walk this road alone. That's for sure.
No, and it can feel tempting to do that sometimes. It can feel like, you
Yeah.
know, speaking of empathy, right? We can almost get like not a false sense of empathy, but this feeling of like, oh, everyone's got their problems and I don't want to bother them. And like, you know, yes, of course, we want to keep that awareness and not make everything about us, because people are
Right.
walking through their own things, but we don't want to believe that as like it almost becomes a lie when it's like, oh, so I should just keep this to myself. It's like, no,
Yeah.
just like what you said, people will help you, people can be there for you. And I think oftentimes people, if you're discerning in who you let into your life, it will surprise you, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know why I whipped that out. I just was thinking about this.
Good. That's why.
It's good. That's why I brought it out. But I don't even know where to go from there. I'm so happy for you. And I'm so glad that the waiting resulted in this, that this is where you are. And the gift that you are about to receive through Luca, like, girl, you don't even know. You do know, but you don't.
Yes.
It's,
Right.
it is, wild. And my son is now here 2.5 years later. I'm not even being dramatic to you, Morgan. Every single day, multiple times throughout the day, Dan and I look at each other and we have this like soul to soul connection with no words that basically is just, well, and it actually is accompanied with words, but it will happen without words too. But it's every day where we're like, can you even believe this? Like a person out of nothing. And I just want to say too that I really, having a child, I think you know this, that for a long time I thought I wasn't going to have a biological child because of chronic pain that I've dealt with. And then also I had this thought of like, man, if there's so many babies that need to be adopted, like, why do I need to replicate my own DNA? That's a separate story that we don't need to go down right now, but there's a whole story around that too. But that being said, once I did it, it was like a veil was lifted off of my eyes. And all of a sudden I saw the culture of death that exists in our world in such a large way. It was like, wow, everything, everywhere is trying to get us to not bring life into this world. And now I understand like the profundity of bringing life into the world. It's so easy to analyze from a distance. Why do I need to duplicate my DNA? And side note, I think this goes without saying, but not everyone can have children. It's not like, but the point is it like the general culture is really a culture of death, and it does not promote life. And once you cross that line of like, you've brought a child out, it's like, whew, your whole world explodes. You see it even more, and you get why Satan doesn't want us to reproduce, why he doesn't want us to experience that, because the miracle that you are going to have a front seat to, I'm getting chills again. It is, I feel so grateful. Yeah, I feel so, it's a miracle, Morgan. And then they start talking and you're just like, you came out of nowhere, like you came out of nowhere. And we see that everywhere in the world, right? Through nature and through all life creating. But like I said, having a front row seat to it, and it's a person with a soul, is just, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. That's amazing. It's so encouraging. I love it.
Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you really felt like you wanted to touch on or share or say? I guess that all means say, but anything else you want to say before we wrap it up, or you feel compelled to share?
Last thing, I kind of like you said, not everyone can have children biologically. And, whatever you're praying for, whatever your waiting season looks like, I encourage you to really hold it all open-handedly and give it to the Lord and trust that he knows your heart's deepest desires. A lot of those are from the Lord. Yeah. I believe the Lord called me or gave me that deep desire to be a mom, to be a wife, but like trusting him in his perfect timing and trusting that whatever it looks like is going to be perfect. And so whether it's like you're waiting for a child and you think that it's going to come biologically and instead it's adopted or through foster care, or a family member can't take care of their child and so they give them to you, whatever it looks like, just don't hold on to something so tightly that you literally push out God's plan.
That's really an interesting balance in life, right? I was listening through a book recently about being like a single unmarried Christian. And the woman was just talking about how there seems to be this kind of prevalent thing that's running through the church of like, being single is a blessing. And so the whole book was kind of around this idea of like, okay, well, first off, yes, but it's actually celibacy. Like, you're supposed to remain celibate. It's not just, oh, you're single and yay. And B, they really hit home the point, like God made Adam and it was not good for Adam to be alone. Like, wanting a spouse is a pure godly desire, and you really shouldn't squelch that. And it's a good idea to be purposeful about it. So it's interesting how it's like, okay, you don't want to squelch those desires because they're good and they're godly, but then exactly like what you said, it's this combination of like keeping your hands open and trusting that like there's so many intricate details to life, and God, the God of the universe, knows better than us. And to allow yourself to have those desires and keep a soft heart and not shut down or become cynical, like we were saying, and and trusting him. It's hard, but I think by leaning on him through prayer and scripture and friends, and family, I think that's kind of how you navigate that. But
yeah, it's good. Yeah. Amen.
I'm really, that's the signal for we're done, is when we start singing. We intro and we end. Morgan. Speaking of which, one day when we're not busy having babies and I finally learn how to record music on my own, or someone else does it for us, I am strong arming Morgan, hopefully, into singing with me one day. Because if you guys didn't know, now you know. Morgan has like the most incredible voice. Your voice is like bluesy, raspy, but like light as well, but powerful too. That was a really weird.
Thank you. Wow.
But I feel like, yeah, it's funny, whenever I bring you up to people, that always comes up at some point, like, oh my gosh, and she has the most amazing voice. So, and she did something really cool a few months ago. She turned you turned Proverbs into songs. Psalms into songs, yeah, because Proverbs are not yet. You turned Psalms into songs. Side note, I visited a church recently that only sings like Psalms as their songs.
Wow.
It was not as cool as your Psalms. No offense to that church, because the Psalms are beautiful and I actually really like the idea of singing songs from scripture, but it wasn't as cool and bluesy as yours. So Morgan, you have a talent, and I'm excited to even see what you do with that in the future as well. And
yes, we will definitely collab.
That'll be really fun. And I'm just really grateful that you said yes to this conversation, and I'm grateful for the work that you and Paul have been putting out there and have been doing, because like we said at the beginning, and like we've talked, offline, it can be hard. People can be really cruel on the internet, assuming they're real people. Side note, have we ever talked about that? Like the bot thing?
Oh man, that's a whole.
I know. I don't even know how much I believe that the crazy people online are actually even real people, considering I remember my dad told me like a month ago that supposedly when Reagan was in office and he was like touring the world, protesters would be paid to come. And like being paid to go in person, like going somewhere in person is like a way bigger deal. And so I'm just thinking like, well, then why wouldn't it be plausible that governments or whoever are utilizing bots? That's a separate topic. But point being, you guys are brave. You guys are brave, and I appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much. We are honored that we get to do it, and hopefully encourage people and plant seeds of God's truth. So,
well, keep it up, lady. Give Paul a hug for me. Tell him I say what's up, and that I daydream of the day when the four of us plus our kids get to hang out. I feel like those conversations are going to be very juicy.
They will be, for sure.
I'm going to link Morgan and Paul's channel down below. And that's it. I hope to talk to you soon. I hope to see all of you, God willing, back here very soon. And that's it. Okay. Bye, guys.